In the 18th century, transoceanic adventures were an important means of discovering uncharted territory. One of the most famous of these was James Cook. He is best known for his trans-Pacific voyages that led to the discovery of many new lands. New Zealand, Australia, and the Hawaiian Islands, lands we all know and love, were mapped by Cook. But Cook's story does not end with mere adventure. His scientific explorations and geographical surveys greatly expanded the world's knowledge of the time. Cook's voyages, accompanied by scientists and astronomers, were also occasions of scientific discovery. In this issue, we will focus on some surprising facts about James Cook and unravel the surprising stories behind his life. How he became an adventurer and what challenges he overcame. How did he become an adventurer, what challenges did he overcome, and how did his death come? Now, let's take a step into the depths of history. Chapter 1. An adventurer from a poor family. His family was not wealthy. His father worked as a farmer. As a child, Cook lived with his family, albeit poor, while helping his father on the farm. Under these circumstances, no one could have imagined that he would later become a world-class adventurer. However, Cook had a special quality. A strong interest in learning. He learned to read, write, and do arithmetic at the village school, always trying to absorb new knowledge. Cook's curiosity gradually turned into a yearning for the outside world. By the age of 17, when he began working as an apprentice in a local store, he had a strong desire to leave his small village and discover the larger world. Finally, he chose to go to sea. He joined a local merchant ship, where he learned the art of navigation. This experience was the catalyst for his later career as an adventurer. Chapter 2. The boy who became a man of the sea. Cook decided to go to sea because he was not satisfied with his apprenticeship in a store. He had a yearning for the sea, and at the age of 17 he embarked on a merchant ship to begin his life at sea. He began by working on small ships that sailed the coasts of England, where Cook learned the art of navigation and map reading, and gradually developed his talents. It was during this period that he also turned his attention to the Navy. In 1755, he joined the Royal Navy, where he would participate in more extensive voyages. The knowledge of navigation and astronomy he learned there would be of great use in the epic expeditions he would later undertake. The Navy at the time was a very harsh environment, and the sailors had to work very hard. Nevertheless, Cook overcame these challenges with his strong will and inquisitive mind, and eventually gained the trust of his superiors. It was almost certain at this point that his name would be etched in history. Chapter 3. A man of the sea, but can't swim. Surprisingly, despite his love of life at sea and his many successful voyages, James Cook actually could not swim. It is surprising to us today that he could not swim, given his daily life at sea, but it was not so unusual among sailors of the time. Many 18th century sailors did not have the skill to swim, as falling overboard meant a fatal situation. Rescues at sea were nearly impossible, and sailors were prepared to sail with a "if you fall off, it's the end" mentality. Cook also survived in such an environment. He overcame difficulties with his knowledge and skill at sea, demonstrating his ability to safely maneuver and command a vessel even if he could not swim. His expeditions were never dependent on his swimming skills. Chapter 4. Cook as a scientist. Cook was known not only as an adventurer, but also as a scientist. His voyages always included scientific objectives. His first voyage to the Pacific Ocean in 1768 was commissioned by the British government and the Royal Society, and its main purpose was to observe the transit of Venus across the Sun's surface in Tahiti. This observation was a pivotal event for astronomy at the time, as it provided critical data for calculating the distance between the Earth and the Sun. Cook successfully completed this mission and brought back valuable data. This enhanced his reputation as a scientist, not just an adventurer. He was accompanied on his voyages by botanists and naturalists, who discovered new plants and animals. In particular, his collaboration with botanist Joseph Banks is well known. Cook's voyages played a major role in expanding scientific knowledge as well as geographical discovery. Chapter 5. Cook prevents scurvy. One of the greatest challenges of long voyages in the 18th century was scurvy. Scurvy, a disease caused by a lack of vitamin C, was fatal to sailors of the time. Many sailors fell ill from the disease on voyages where fresh food was unavailable for months at a time. Cook found a revolutionary solution in the prevention of this scurvy. He prevented scurvy by giving the sailors sour cabbage and citrus fruits to supplement their vitamin C intake during the voyage. This allowed the crews of his ships to remain much healthier than on other ships. This achievement later spread throughout the Royal Navy and led to a significant reduction in the incidence of scurvy during voyages. Cook's discovery was more than just an explorer's achievement. It was also a major medical contribution. Chapter 6. Observation of Venus in Tahiti and its lost records. In 1769, Cook set out on a voyage to observe the transit of Venus across the Sun in Tahiti. This astronomical event was of great importance for calculating the distance between the Earth and the Sun, and Cook went to great lengths to ensure the success of his observations. However, some of the observations were inaccurate, partly due to the climate of the Pacific Ocean and the limitations of the instruments. Cook and his team set up an observation station as soon as they arrived in Tahiti to observe the transit of Venus across the Sun, which was scheduled for June 3, 1769. However, there were several problems with the observations. In particular, the accuracy of the instruments and weather conditions prevented them from obtaining accurate data. Although this observation was a very important event in the history of astronomy, it was not a complete success. Nevertheless, Cook's voyage did not end with this failure. Rather, his exploratory exploits continued in the years that followed. After his observations in Tahiti were completed, he continued further south to take on a new mission to explore a then unknown region. This Venus-observing voyage was a major turning point in Cook's career and cemented his reputation as an explorer. His inquisitiveness and contributions to science have elevated him from a mere adventurer to a prominent figure in the history of astronomy and science. Chapter 7. Cook's greatest discovery. Australia. When one hears the name James Cook, Australia immediately comes to mind. Cook discovered the eastern coast of Australia in 1770 during his first Pacific voyage and declared the area a British territory. This event was a major catalyst for Australia later becoming a British colony. At the time, Australia was largely unknown to Europeans. Although the Dutch had explored the western coast earlier, the eastern coast was unexplored. Cook's expedition surveyed and mapped in detail a vast area that included what is now the state of New South Wales. It was not merely new land that Cook discovered. He also came into contact with the Aboriginal people who lived there, and was exposed to their way of life and culture. However, these contacts were not always friendly, and tensions rose at times. Later, as the area was colonized, the lives of the Aboriginal people were drastically changed and a tragic history was written. Cook's discovery of Australia had a profound impact not only geographically, but also politically. His voyages had a major impact on British colonial policy, which should not be forgotten in history. Chapter 8. Exploration of New Zealand and encounter with Maori. Another important discovery of Cook's voyage was the exploration of New Zealand. He reached New Zealand in 1769 and mapped its coastline in detail. New Zealand itself had previously been discovered by Dutch explorer Abel Tasman, but Cook surveyed the land more thoroughly and brought back accurate maps to Europe. When Cook's expedition arrived in New Zealand, they had their first contact with the Maori. The first encounters were not friendly and resulted in misunderstandings and conflicts. Maori warriors took an aggressive attitude toward Cook's sailors, forcing Cook to fight back in defense. This initial tension illustrates the difficulty of communication between different cultures. However, some understanding subsequently developed between Cook and the Maori, and he continued to maintain respectful contact with their culture and customs. The survey of New Zealand became one of Cook's most important accomplishments and has gone down in history as part of the geographical achievement of his voyage. How was it? If you liked this video, please like and subscribe to our channel. See you next time.